Welcome to the show, everybody. Micah with CoronaVirusDiaries, and today I'm blessed to be able to speak again with Gabrielle Arrowsmith, a health unit coordinator at a local Twin Cities hospital. Gabrielle, how are you?
I'm good. Keeping my head above water here.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do. So before we jumped into this episode, this session, we were chatting briefly, and you have some new news to share in terms of what's changed since the last time we talked.
Yeah.
So the listeners.
My new news is just that I'm back at work. So I was on furlough officially for 2 months.
Wow.
And now I'm back at the hospital. Employees have started to come back to the hospital based on rising needs. Our department is normal / exceeding our typical needs for this current time.
Really?
Just because, there were a lot of patients. If you think about how many people had kind of qualms about coming into a hospital for a long period of time, a lot of those patients are kiddos who receive routine care. So they're kind of putting off their routine care as long as possible until they felt a little bit more comfortable.
Sure.
And now we're starting to see it, a surge in a lot of patients that would have been seen for the last 3 months that haven't come in. And now they're sort of at the end of, their tubes need to be changed so they can be fed through gestational tubes and that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard.
I said gestational. I mean gastronomy.
Gastronomy.
Yes.
I'd heard hospitals in Texas were reaching capacity with, the number of COVID patients. It was like 28% roughly, something like that, and then the rest. But they were talking about the difficulties in, managing this, this 20-some% of COVID patients than all the rest of the folks that are, going in for treatment with whether it's cancers or whatever the condition is. Are you noticing anything like that at your hospital where I'm assuming you have like a COVID wing where the people will go in and, be treated there or, be managed? What's it like at your hospital?
Yeah, so we actually still don't have any specific unit or wing that's designated just for coronavirus, patients. It's cardiovascular and respiratory unit, but we haven't had enough COVID diagnoses to designate an entire wing to that treating COVID-19.
That is interesting. So what is your take on that, being as we are in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul? There's a few million people floating around out here, and you're saying that there's really not a whole lot of anything going on there. Do you know of a hospital in the cities where it's like designated a coronavirus or COVID-19 like holding facility or anything like that? Is there something?
Yeah. I don't know. I can't really comment on any other hospitals just because I don't have a lot of communication with other systems. We're sort of our own entity, but I know that the reason, that we don't have a designated wing for COVID is because we're not seeing children with as severe symptoms as adults, especially elderly adults, and we just treat kids. So.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's very interesting indeed to kind of see the progression of things and how it's been happening. I was surprised after, we had widespread protesting. We still have widespread protesting, but then with the riots as well, there was, thousands upon thousands of people for long durations of time in close proximity. And I guess you would have thought that there would have been surges of some kind in the city. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. So what's it look like for you moving forward? You had mentioned you have a unique situation in terms of how you went back to work. Mind sharing that?
Yes. So my return from furlough is actually not in regards to we do have higher patient needs. I want to be clear about that. We have exceeded our normal number of patients that we would be seeing per day. However, that's not the reason that I was brought back. I was brought back because another coworker who happens to be my brother is a new dad. So he is on paternity leave, and that's why they got me back into the hospital.
That's great. So they drew your name out of a hat to fill your brother's space while he's at home with the new kid.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's gotta be nice.
Grayed out Arrowsmiths. Yeah.
Have you been able to see the new edition yet?
Yes. Yep. A couple of times. So that's nice.
It's going to be interesting. It'll be a great story to tell the kid in the future is that they were a COVID baby.
Right. I know our families are always big on like going to the hospital and seeing that, meeting the baby for the first time at the hospital and checking on the parents, making sure everybody's okay, that kind of thing. And, that's not, fortunately, bringing new life into the world is awesome. But for people who are watching their loved ones pass away without having family nearby and around, that's got to be really tough right now.
So, yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
So aside from being a health unit coordinator at a hospital, you're also creative in a variety of aspects, author, actress. Have you been delving into this creative realm recently?
A little, yeah. So I'm still working on the same feature film project, Hamlet, set in 2020. So we are starting to now. Before, I think last we had talked about just having the setting be coronavirus, but because we were always looking at Minnesota being the setting instead of Denmark, which is Hamlet's traditional setting, we are looking at now incorporating like Black Lives Matter and riots, protests, that kind of thing a little bit into the film as well. And I'm not sure because I'm not an organizer at all, so I don't know if they're going to be trying to like make a statement based on that or just try to, have this exposure of this is the current state of this place.
And you'd said that it sounded like it was going to be a lot of virtual types of engagements within this film. Has there been anything that you can share that has been unique or kind of like exciting to be a part of in that respect?
It's been fun to watch the footage start to come together. They've been sharing little snippets of things because we're all just filming at home with our phones, or maybe we have someone else we live with who can film something for us. But for the most part, it's been this type of thing where you set the phone up on some janky, tripod, and then you step back and do your lines and walk over and push stop. And so it's people who don't have that kind of training. We might do self tapes now and again, but most actors don't have the same kind of training in like lighting and eliminating sounds in the background and that kind of thing. So it's interesting to see what the edit is starting to look like. And I think everybody's kind of pleased and pleasantly surprised with like eye lines and things that need to line up when you're actually not in the same room with someone.
Yeah, it's a lot of, there's a lot of moving parts, and I thought it was interesting you mentioned how there's new elements in lieu of recent events that are being kind of injected into it. And that's something that even with one of my own projects that I'm looking to release on this channel is, when the protests had started happening, this was predominant, this was just a channel and, staying in contact with people at varying industries globally and just kind of tracking the progression of, I guess, lives throughout all this. And then suddenly, protests and riots start happening, and then it goes globally. Who could have predicted? But it changed kind of the workflow, if you will, of what I was even doing, to the point of, suddenly I'm involved in these big protests, or I'm present and documenting, and now there's this trove of information. And like you had said, you don't know if they're going to try to make a statement with the new content, but that's really where I'm at. Is it's highly politicized. That's going there's so many different angles and so many different divides in information that it's making it a bit difficult myself. Or is there some of that you would, in terms of the project itself, that there's pivots that have been taking place that are changing things for you or the production?
I don't think there have been any changes discussed so far as like, we're going to now shift and make this more the focus of our, of the theme of the film or anything like that. But I think we have seen, we've got like a gal out in LA and another gal in Chicago. And so I think it's been harder to get people on board and in the meetings that we have scheduled, just because there's so much going on now beyond just coronavirus. Like, people have other things that they're involved in and, other priorities right now. So
Sure.
which is understandable, but it's making it difficult, I think, for the team leaders to get people committed to showing up. And
Speaking of other agendas and initiatives,
mm.
what's your take on the next couple of months? Do you have any things that you yourself are planning out, like any travel? Are you looking for anything outside
Yeah,
of?
I'm kind of in this really tricky holding pattern right now, which is I'm a planner and I'm very like organized and have to have all my ducks in a row. And that's not, I don't have the power to do that right now. So on the side, my background is in elementary education. I'm a substitute teacher. So substituting did not happen for the last 3 months of the school year because everybody was at home after spring break.
Yeah.
And I don't know what that's like. I don't know if that side employment is going away. And then at the hospital, I'm still working a different hours, different shift. So I've lost like my shift differential pay. We
Sure.
also all took wage cuts through the end of 2020, so all the way to December.
Oh,
And then we're being asked to do twice as much work because we still have less staff versus the patient needs that are high. So it's like the stress levels right now at the hospital are incredible, and I'm used to like having multiple jobs to kind of carry me, and now I just have the one, and the finances are not what they used to be, and it's like it's just stressful being at work for my 8.5 hour shift and coming home, and like it's just a lot.
yeah, and we're going. I mean, it's really only about 4 months, right? Because in
Mm-hmm.
March, everything started getting locked down.
Yeah.
Um, it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the next, 3, 4, 5 months, because of that, where there's a
Yeah.
lot of people. I just seen this morning, another like 1.5 million people applied for unemployment, and it's kind of like this regular thing that just is continuing. And I think the end of this month, there's is the additional federal like $600 a month or whatever
Oh, sure.
supposed to expire.
Right. The 31st. Yep.
Yeah, which is it'll be very interesting to see what happens. There's potential housing market issues if people aren't
Yeah.
able. Yeah, there was something I was reading about 30-some% of people are being late or defaulting on house payments, and whether that's rent or home payment, mortgage payments. They didn't necessarily differentiate in the piece
Mm-hmm.
that I read, but could present a whole host of problems.
Well, and if we do see, I know they're saying like in Hollywood, for example, they kind of have gotten back into productions, and now they're counting numbers and things and saying that this was not a smart choice, and they're kind of going back on that recommendation to try to get productions going again. And we're seeing that kind of thing everywhere, that people, some sides anyway, are saying this is not the right choice. We shouldn't be going back to work or to
Really?
leisure and things. Yeah.
But even in Hollywood, where their
Yes.
entire industry is, basically on pause,
Hmm.
get back to work, and then what did they have, like some sort of outbreaks or something happening to where?
Yeah, yeah. I didn't read the full scope of like what the article had said, but it just said that Hollywood has noticed that it's just not the right choice right now to go back into production, and that they were following certain guidelines and whatnot, and it's proving not to, I don't know, not to be working as well as they had hoped. So
Yeah,
hard to know for sure.
right.
Yeah.
So I think in times like this, it's it tests a lot of people's abilities to adapt and overcome, and make pivots and changes in order to adapt. Uh, Briefly with the substitute teaching,
Hmm.
your thoughts on I know it's a big topic right now, is do we
Right.
reopen schools?
Yeah.
What's your thoughts there?
I think it's tough because the way that they're looking at reopening school is, kids aren't going to have their specials. So they're not going to have their phy ed or their art or music or things like that kind of break up the day of the heavy curriculum. And they're
Sure.
not going to have like recess or lunchroom time. So it sounds like it's going to be a small group of kids coming in for either every other day or every other week or part of every day, being separated. And in the lower grades, like your learning is so heavily based on manipulative use. Like you're playing with like math blocks and things to learn about like base 10 blocks and things like that, or cards, or playing cards with another kiddo, and all of that's going to go away.
Yeah.
The way that they're looking at opening schools is just every child in their own desk, teachers giving instruction, and I don't think kids learn that way anymore. We're back into like the slate and chalk kind of
Yeah.
era where it's like sit in your desk, sit still, be quiet, and kids are not used to that kind of instruction. So I think it's going to be really hard on kids. However, I don't know what options families have to continue, caring for their kids, or all of the daycare centers being, overwhelmed if kids have to be home all the time. I don't know. I guess there's just not a good solution right now.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think either model makes a lot of sense or is really great for anything, for kids, for teachers, for parents. Neither model really solves the problem.
Which is, it's here to stay.
Yeah.
It isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Is there any talk within the hospital amongst the, at least healthcare professionals over this idea of a vaccine, or like what's the take on that? I mean, is that even I guess I've come to believe like we won't see anything like that until like if it ever even comes to fruition for a year, maybe 2 years, maybe longer. Who knows?
Yeah. I'm with you because I feel like we just continue to get so many different reports as to what testing even looks like. So if we haven't really solidified, testing methods or results even that we feel really secure about,
Yeah.
then I don't know how we could be developing a vaccine that's going to truly, take care of giving us the proper antibodies that we need to fight this thing off if we're still struggling to recognize it.
Yeah, it's like before we had started there, we had discussed a bit about just the information that we have to work off of. And very early on in the pandemic, there was a model that was being used basically from the UK, from a scientist it turned out to be extremely flawed in terms of the casualty rate that they were anticipating. And because of that, downstream, there was all sorts of in hindsight, heavily excessive measures that were put into place. But now, even still, there was just an investigative journalism piece that came out this week about a lot of the places, Florida being one of them. My sister's down there. That's what makes me think of Florida.
All right.
In that the testing that was being done at all these facilities, there was a whole number of these facilities that were suggesting there was a 100% infection rate of all the people that came in, which is inaccurate. Like everybody's going, yeah, it's not going to be 100% of all.
Right.
And then this morning I jump online to scan the headlines, and I'm seeing something about Russia and China hacking. I believe the places where they're actually dealing with the data on COVID, which, what a genius move if it was, like people think that, oh yeah, it's so bad that, everybody's sick, keep everybody down.
Right.
It's a good move from a hacker perspective to break an economy even further. So yeah, the data, the information, we're in an information age and kind of a battle of what's accurate.
And that's the tough part, is that it's so accessible, which is great. I think it's important that everything, that we're all informed, but there's so many different studies and different results that it's overwhelming. You don't know what's real,
Yeah, and it's almost like some sort of an incentive program, if there could be developed, which, makes me think there's a crypto token called Augur, and I don't know if you messed with it at all. The unique thing about this token is that they reward journalists. My understanding is they reward journalists on accurate information. So like as they're producing content, as they're distributing content, the more accurate it is, after it's been released and it come find out, like in the hindsight assessment is that yes, in fact, it was accurate, they get rewarded with some sort of a tangible financial uh, element. And I could be not entirely doing it justice, but from the bit that I've been paying attention, it seems to be doing quite well. It's been climbing
Cool.
ranks since COVID.
It's great that that's there. It's also sad that we need that, because right now the burden is on the everyday person to try to sift through this incredible amount of information and try to find the bits and pieces of truth and put them all together in a way that makes sense to you, and something that you can apply then to the way that you're making decisions and living your life.
Yeah, I think it's become evident over the last few years, especially that platforms like Facebook, they use algorithms based on your engagement and the things that you like and don't like and the things you spend time watching to feed you more of that, like this self-fulfilling prophecy. So, if you start off in the middle and you start watching stuff that's either right or left, just for basic demonstration, then they'll start feeding you more of that same content, and it'll just keep pulling you further in one direction as opposed to the other.
Sure.
Which, it may be difficult for some people to grasp, but this idea of, trying to at least digest opposing views, to come up with a more realistic understanding of any given topic is kind of a more ideal path. But it'll be interesting to see what direction they go with these algorithms of data distribution. Well, Gabrielle, I know you have a busy day ahead of you. Did you have anything that you wanted to touch base on before we go?
No, I don't think so. I think that about covers it.
I really, truly appreciate you spending the time. It's great to get a take from somebody that's on the inside in healthcare. And I wish you the best of luck with the film project that's ongoing. Is there any kind of a time frame when they're trying to wrap it up, or?
I'm not sure. I know I have started to see some deadlines just because they're trying to, get people to commit and to do their part so that they can edit everything fully together. But there's 3 acts that we've gotten into filming so far. There are 5 acts total. Okay. So I would say maybe in the next couple of months, we'll have filming completed and then it'll go into post.
That'll be a great thing to have in your resume, is that you this project through COVID.
Right.
You found an opportunity and you seized it. That's great. So, curious, if you were given the opportunity to do in-person substitute teaching starting, at the beginning of the school year, would you sign up for that, or how do you feel about it?
Yes. Yep, I would. I'm already exposed to kids and to adults and people at the hospital, and you do your best to, safe practices, wash your hands, whatnot, and hope for the best, I guess.
That's great. Well,
yeah, I think kids need to learn, and I think that they need to be around others and, be taken care of by other adults. It's important for other adults to be around children also, so they're not just at home, with the same folks if those folks aren't safe or something like that.
Sure.
Which happens, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's outstanding. And I look forward to speaking with you again here. We'll give it a few more weeks again, and who knows, maybe you'll be in a classroom teaching the next time we connect.
Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see how the time progresses. So to all the viewers and listeners, you can check out some of Gabrielle's books and stuff below. I'll keep the link in there. You can keep up with her on the creative end of things, social media. And thanks again, Gabrielle. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Micah.